Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Peter Mueller, and I, along with my colleague Susanna Richter-Wills, will be leading today's webinar, Process Documents at Lightning Speed with Bulletproof Data Privacy Using AI and HI, Human Intelligence. This is an important topic because, like probably all of you joining today, data protection is discussed within every customer interaction. Today's session is not meant to be an intensive review of data protection regulations, rather an introduction on how collective intelligence tackles data privacy differently. We're going to begin by covering a few trends related to security, data privacy, and compliance, and then relate those to the business impacts for document processing. Susanna will then dive deeper into considerations and choices for operations centers and go over how collective intelligence can help to ensure that privacy of data, as well as full compliance for all document types, can be achieved. With the stage set, I'm going to be speaking with a guest today. Our guest today is Luembe Dominguez, CTO at Concord Incorporated. Luembe and I will discuss his firsthand experience using collective intelligence for processing sensitive HR documents in our Q&A session. Please note that today's webinar will be recorded and will be shared with all registrants. Feel free to drop any questions in the chat threads, either on LinkedIn or YouTube, and we will answer in the Q&A session during the last 10 minutes. With that, let's get started. So think about how many document types hold personal data. Data that's often required to complete a business process or a personal transaction. As all of us as consumers, we want to have our process completed quickly and accurately for max convenience, but also be assured that our personal data is safe and sound. Let's say, for example, we submit an HR form with our personal background information or sensitive financial information related to a personal loan. The expectation is always that the data we provide on these forms will not be lost or passed around. As consumers submitting documentation, how can the expectation of 100% data privacy be met while still receiving fast and accurate turnaround on our requests? Also, what are some of the main concerns and risks for governance and compliance over personal or private data, and how does that balance out against consumer demands? Today, we're going to go through how this can be achieved with collective intelligence added to the overall mix for even better data security and compliance. In Splunk's 2023 CISO report, the role of Chief Information and Security Officer, the CISO, was highlighted, as well as how they are becoming more and more powerful in organizations every day. The reasons are pretty clear. 93% of them are seeing an increase in their cybersecurity budget in the coming year, while simultaneously reporting an 82% cut in budgets for other line items. There's a shift here, but why? One reason is that 90% of CISOs reported that their organizations experienced at least one disruptive cyber-related attack last year. Furthermore, 83% of them paid out in the wake of a ransomware attack directly via cyber insurance or with a negotiator, with more than half of them paying at least $100K. Also, Gen AI is already affecting incremental spend. Right now, CISOs are saying that it will cause a 15% increase for data security. Presumably, this number will continue to grow in the years to come. Clearly, with all this in mind, CISOs have a lot to think about and plan for. In the meantime, how do they instill confidence in their cybersecurity approach and ensure that they are compliant? Naturally, certifications of compliance provide a measure of being, quote unquote, in a safe place. Currently, privacy and security certifications that are high on the list include HIPAA and GDPR in Europe, as well as ISO 27001. All of which that provide a framework and governance standards for data privacy, security, and compliance. If you are not following these standards, you are not playing in the market, of course. But what can be the effects on your business if you are not in the club, so to speak, and following HIPAA, GDPR, and ISO standards? Or even if you do have these certification, what risks remain, and how can you mitigate further to address the needs of the business? Given that cybersecurity is assuming a more central role in business risk management, CEOs and chief operating officers are listening closely to the CISO strategy as they are increasingly tied to broader business needs. With data security touching many areas, there can be serious consequences nowadays for the business performance and revenues as a whole if the CISO does not have control and oversight. Let's talk about some of the downstream risks in business areas impacted. For meeting the service levels, for example, when processing data from documents, which is the topic today, operations leaders are constantly being squeezed to have as close to real-time processing as possible to meet customer demands. But of course, a balance must be taken into consideration between the must of data privacy and being compliant versus faster turnaround times. Having a data breach and being tagged as non-compliant will increase exposure to fines, loss of licenses, or even worse. In a competitive market, it is important to think about how both can be addressed. Further, agility when upscaling and downscaling workforce is mandatory for operations teams. Document volume spikes need to be adequately staffed to meet all SLAs, but that then forces the hand of CISOs as well. They need to make sure all users, some remote, some on site maybe, are fully compliant, trained, and in sync with all data security measures. From a business perspective, this is crucial and has no room for error. Finally, competitive standing is at stake. Having a data breach or compliance violation could shred reputations overnight and impact the business immediately. This is to be avoided at all times, of course. And even on top of all of this, 70% of CISOs believe that Gen AI will create an asymmetrical battlefield that will inevitably be tipped in favor of cyber adversaries. There's even more storms on the horizon. So there's lots to think about for CISOs, and the stakes are high. Given this backdrop, how can data privacy strategies that bring collective intelligence into the mix for document-based process optimization be a massive help and change the game for everyone? For that, I pass off to Susanna to discuss.
Thank you very much, Peter, and hello to everybody. Yes, what I would like to do is bring it down to some best practice that we see and some new practice, I guess, that you may not have seen that we can share with the view of lowering risk when it comes to document processing. So over the recent years, the options to utilize tools, solutions, services for document processes optimization is increasing. And some of the new ones or newer ones like cloud processing or AI, as it's in everybody's mind, but also the capability to work with a service partner, BPO maybe, in a more deeper value chain is holding a lot of promises, a lot of benefits. But it's also holding risks, or does it? I mean, very often data protection officers are the ones to veto any new approaches because the risk seems to be too high. And it could be also true, but there are also other ways, especially in the area of collective intelligence, to minimize the risk and to counteract any possibilities of having any breaches or any of the risks that Peter has shown previously. So what I'd like to do is really go down and share some of the best and bad practices we see, and then really talk to you about some of the concrete examples of the tools and approaches that collective intelligence is adding to this game. Now, some of the more basics, and everybody's using it not just for the document processing, are things that never change. For example, the legal side. So tight contracts are certainly one way of ensuring that either your solution or service provider is tied in and is actually sharing the risk at least with you in the back-to-back contract. In the bad experience or in the bad examples, that's what's being relied upon. So penalties alone and shared liabilities does not de-risk an operation. So the one thing also to be safer is to ensure that the partner chosen has done the homework, which can often be seen in certification, relevant certifications that apply. Usually, most of the time, ISO, but can be much more specific ones related to an industry, such as HIPAA, maybe in the healthcare sector. What does this mean? So by having a partner that provides a solution or service, having a certification, it shows they have done some homework and certainly have done at least maybe they are home when it comes to their infrastructure being secure and the risk of data being lost or disposed in that way being done. But actually, it does not change very much on the processing side very often. So this is leading a lot of organizations then to restrict the way they interact with those partners by restricting access. So if you're looking at a solution, an AI solution lives from data. So if you restrict, of course, data, that is possible, but it also would mean the benefits would be limited. The same if you work with a service provider and you maybe allow them access to your systems via Citrix, so you're actually body lease. Yes, you of course eliminate your staff shortages, but you will not gain much of more of a benefit when it comes to your documents being processed and your process being automated. So can there be more? And this is of course where collective intelligence can come in. And when we, with a scale up, being a leading provider in this space, come to customers, the first reaction is that of, oh my God, what are they all about? Because we start talking about the cloud. We start talking about bringing worldwide talent. We start talking about bringing AI into the game, and all those red flags come up, and everybody's saying, risk, 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 can't do this. And then we start talking about how do we do it, and that's when this data protection officers suddenly start to relax and say, well, that approach is different. We see that it can work, and we certainly feel a lot more confident, even in many cases, than the way we're doing it today. And that's why we are processing things such as insurance claims, maybe application forms, medical records, working with government data, or HR data, like we see in the example of Concord later on, where we see some real life, get some real life feedback, at least from experiences gained with that. But what do we mean by that? So how do we do this? Now, first of all, let me talk about what is collective intelligence. So in Schul's definition, collective intelligence talks about the combination of artificial and human intelligence in such a way that combined, they bring more benefits than one or the other alone. Now, we all talk about AI nowadays, and the advances are great. At the same time, those of you who may have gained some experience with that, you also see some more risks are being introduced, and AI can hallucinate, for example, invent things, or cannot give it the right feedback, and I always think is right in a way. So the bringing the human in the loop is becoming more and more important, but also more challenging and more difficult. So in that sense, collective intelligence is really something that is focusing purely on that, how to combine the two to automate in the best possible way. Now, when it comes to the way that we are doing it in the context of document processing, for us, it means that we, on the one hand side, use AI to automate, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. So we're talking about closing gaps, automation gaps for our customers when it comes to document processes and AI. First of all, applying AI, specialist AI, is one thing that we do. But we're also using AI to change the way we bring the humans in the loop, in the way of controlling and preparing tasks for such humans. And we often get involved in cases where either the documentation is very poor, or there are challenges when it comes to the way that documents are being perceived, so like high peaks, unpredictable volumes, and so on. So we are doing it in a slightly different way, that we are actually bringing in the human in the loop in a form of crowdsourcing. So crowdsourcing means that we have access to a very large amount of people, and the number may blow you away. We have over 2 million people available to us, which we can select and tailor to tasks. Now, if you think about already 2 million people potentially, and in actual terms, around 30, 40,000 on parallel working anytime, anywhere in the world for tasks for our global customer base, that's a large amount of people to control and tasks to control. And this is something where the collective intelligence really comes to its fullest. So we're using AI, as I said, to automate, and the human then to make sure to control the data. Because something that we do, for example, we provide service level guarantees in time, in quality. So we have to be sure that what we deliver is the correct data and is close to 100% as our customers require it, to close that automation gap. So this talent that we are accessing is available all the time. So it scales instantly and unlimited. So we can, for example, create tasks for 1,000 more people every 10 minutes, and we can onboard these people. They come and they work on tasks and they go again, and therefore the way that we need to do things had to be different, just to cope with that pure scale of things. So just imagine if we had so many thousands of people in parallel working, we have different types of people working out there. If we're controlling and tailoring it, then we need to do things differently. And in comes the topic that we are using, or the techniques that we are using in order to control what we do. And it's in the form of microtasking. So we are breaking down the complexity of the task that our humans get involved in to ensure we can have parallel working of many people. We can onboard people very quickly. We can actually distribute tasks to match a specific skill, whether that is a specific language skill, maybe someone can recognize certain handwriting, or it is a special skill related to a classification of a document type from a very specific industry. We need to be able to do that. And while we've been doing this from the very beginning, we realized this also has a very positive impact on data protection and data privacy, and it's allowed us to open actually the use cases up, especially to those where sensitive data is being utilized. So let me talk a little bit about how we're doing it and show you some of those techniques. Now, those who've been following us for a while may have joined us or maybe read about us. You may know us as the Snippet company. So snippeting and scale up seems to be connected somehow. And this is something we've always been referred to or talked about. So snippeting is certainly one very important tool that we use to take things out of context. So when we are supporting tasks on documents that require the data, the relevant data, to be extracted or captured, then what we do is we create, with the aid of AI, a snippet of data that we take out of context, such as a first name, a date, maybe a dollar amount, a euro amount, or maybe even a number, which may at the end of the day be something like a account number. But at the end of the day, if you have just a snippet shown to you of a name, Peter, do you know what this is all about? And this is what snippet is all. This is what snippet is at the heart of it. So we're taking things out of context and using AI in the first instance to actually recognize it, meaning that the document as a whole never is exposed and remains behind many layers of firewalls, and even behind the firewalls of our customers in many times. So the data and the logic that remains to link a snippet to the document is really behind really, really tight walls and cannot be penetrated, will never be exposed. So a person outside, whether that's whatever crowd that is, could be also a customer's a staff member working from home, is really sort of context that it's not no longer recognizable where it belongs to and cannot be followed back to where its origin is. This is a fundamental technique that you can imagine is, or some people may perceive, oh, that's simple. Think about it though, if you have a contract where you have many, many pages, and on maybe 50 pages or so, you have 10 data points that you need to discover. So you see where the AI is coming in. So there's a lot of logic behind it, of course, to detect those data points. And sometimes actually detection and snippeting of it is not enough. So what we do in addition to that, we make it often also unrecognizable. So we have other techniques where we're replacing it. We are even cutting it further apart. We're changing the order of it. We may replace a name with something completely different, pseudonym, in order to allow work on a document without exposing the actual real data. So this is something that maybe some of you have been playing around with because AI is enabling this in recent years. We've been using that for a while, but of course, we're also very glad of advances of AI because it's increasing also the possibilities for collective intelligence. So we're using that as well as also things such as anonymization when we're looking for maybe named entities such as all names or all numbers or all dates that we would anonymize before a document is being exposed for maybe triage work out in the crowd. So if you look at these three tools alone, you can see that by taking it out of context, making it unrecognizable, replacing it, and making it also unavailable even to see, it increases the data security a lot and allows AI as well as human talent to be helping with document processing. Now, when it comes to human talent, the crowd that we're using, the crowd workers that we're using, is also another tool for us to ensure that data protection, data security is increased when it comes to collective intelligence solutions. So next to the 2 million people that we have available, as we call our public or global crowd, we have specialists available to us in over 40 countries that are linked even closer to us. And we have the ability to bring in staff from our customers into the loop. And in the most sensitive cases, you can be sure that we use a combination of all those three. So we really ensure that the data most sensitive or perceived to be most sensitive by a data protection officer remains as close to the customer itself as possible without losing the possibility of the scale and the time and the cost advantages of bringing in the larger crowd as well. So this is really the basics of how the tools that we utilize and the approach that collective intelligence utilize is bringing data protection increases even and further protection to document process optimization. Let me show you one example just to make it a little bit more real. And this is something like a document that contains, so it's of course fake data, so don't get worried here now. It's fake data, but the document itself, you can see there's a lot of data here which in context would allow the criminal mind to do a lot of damage, put it that way, right? So you have the combination of names, dates, you have the social security number in this case, and I think everybody on the call would agree that this is not something you would expose to the cloud or to anybody external without protection. So this is actually where we come in. So what we do with 8 as a set of AI different techniques, we identify the data that is relevant, and we are creating those snippets. The snippets are then exposed to our crowd contributor in such a way that they will only ever see one snippet of any one document. So even if they have a fantastic mind and they recognize handwriting, they would never have the chance to think about the context because they would never see one snippet from another document and never in a context that they can put it together. So here, for example, we would show first names being presented. So we would take data from many different documents of a customer to represent, to collect and to expose in a way that it keeps productivity high for our crowd workers and security high, and allow us to parallelize the work in order to then get a very fast turnaround time. Turnaround time, just in case I've mentioned it. So we're working with very tight service levels, as little as an hour, but we deliver it much faster than that. So our crowd grabs tasks within seconds of them being exposed to them. So it's a very fast turnaround and independent of the volume we are exposing to them. So this is an example of, you have a name. A name is something that is not in itself very sensitive. You can just snippet it and expose it to a crowd worker. But there may be other parts on this form, such as a social security number. So whilst it can, for some, it may only be a number, others may recognize a pattern within it. And certainly this is something that we would treat differently. We would actually cut apart, at least scramble, and use other techniques. An IBAN number is another example for that. An email address may be another one where you can easily make a context out of it, and you cannot just expose the whole field. So for example, very simply, what we can do here, we would have broken up a social security number into 3 pieces. And if you just see a 3-digit number that is mixed up with other 3-digit number of other origin, you cannot again see the context. And this is when the data protection officers start to relax and really trust the process by the documents and the data being behind the firewalls, the context of them being really remains safely within the hands of the organization. And anything that is being exposed outside is really something that's so out of context, so unrecognizable, that the data is no longer protectable personal information, but just snippets of information that do not hold a specific requirement for being protected. So some of you may ask, okay, this can go wrong. Really, does it ever go wrong? Do we ever snippet the wrong thing? Yeah, of course we do. But we also would not be where we are if we hadn't done our homework. So we have a multi-stage process behind it. So we are utilizing the abilities of our technology as well as our crowds to de-risk. So the more you go into unstructured data, the higher the risk can be, and therefore the more stages you need to introduce in order to ensure that you can again maximize the usage of the vast crowd and the AI, of course, but also limit the exposure risk so that we at the end of the day would be scrambling and anonymizing too much rather than too little, and in order to secure the data going out there and being processed. So that all said, hopefully this gave you a little bit of an insight that the collective intelligence for processing documents is a very secure way, that it actually does provide different tools and techniques in order to make full use out of AI and of global talent that can be utilized, and go towards the greener side of things, of lower risk and lower costs. Now, that's all said, that's all being the theory. And I'm as interested as you are now, hopefully, in now getting Peter to introduce our guest today and hear from some real life experience with this approach and getting an insight into how Concord is being experiences collective intelligence.
Yes, thank you, Susanna. And want to welcome to the stage Luembe Dominguez. He's the CTO at Concord Incorporated. Hi, Luembe.
Hello, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. Luembe oversees their Concord's technology stack, and they focus on both government use cases and commercial engagements. And of course, these all demand the highest level of compliance for data security. So we're going to ask him some questions and share a use case today and gain a little bit of his knowledge about how collective intelligence has helped him, how it's helped Concord, and yeah, open for questions too. So if you don't mind, Luembe, can you just share an introduction of Concord, share a bit about the solutions that you and your team bring to the market for the audience?
Yeah, so Concord, essentially, we specialize in compliance and screening, really around people seeking employment. The companies want to know that they're hiring people that can meet certain regulations, or that have a clean background check or other things. Continued employment, and also re-engaging those folks in employment as well. And so we deliver compliance programs for those companies. And we also deliver screening programs, and all of that is geared towards safety. In accordance with that as well, we also provide training and consulting for our clients to support them in understanding these regulations or these rules as well. And with that, of course, we process a lot of their information about their colleagues. So that's essentially our business in a nutshell. We've been around for about 40 years. So we have a lot of experience with not only some of our clients, but also with these regulations and how they've developed over the years and the technology that we use to process it.
Yeah, and given all that background and all the data security topics, it's really great that you joined us today, because you clearly have it's really important part of your overall go-to-market at Concord. Thank you for that. And can you share, from a high level, we've talked about data security and compliance and some of the introductions here and the concepts, but for you in the past few years, what's changed for you, or what's I guess on the forefront for you in your mind? And even like with all the stuff that's going on with AI, how has that changed your job and the work you're doing related to data security and compliance?
It's changed it in ways that I don't think anyone truly really understands even. I would say that there's so much that's different. We've been doing penetration testing with our own employees at Concord for easily over half a decade. But now we have to make sure that we ramp those efforts up, because AI can make so much more convincing phishing or spear phishing, certain types of attacks that people may be susceptible to. When you come and talk about kind of what people are willing to share, right? What people don't know can be used to kind of violate privacy. educating folks on these regulations and standards, right? Like how to be secure with, all types of data, right? AI definitely brings in a lot of wild cards that we have to be pretty nimble to adjust. So we focus a lot on security. We talk about like we're a small group, but we've doubled in size as far as information technology, and most of that's been on the infrastructure security side to help us understand and deal with these kinds of new developments and also take advantage of them. On the flip side of it, how it's changed my job is that there's a lot of tools that it provides, a lot easier, whether you want to create graphics or you want to say, hey, I want to look up a certain coding design pattern and see an example. You can just basically speak it into and type it into an AI, right? Like GitHub Copilot or things like that, and get the information back. So in that regard, being in an IT team, it's very helpful. Just like any tool, right? It can be used one way or the other, but it's just either way, it's a lot of change for us and a lot to learn.
Yeah, so it sounds like with all the change, the market is moving with you and giving you tools as well, and I guess that kind of pivots to how we know you and some of the work we're doing with you to help support you from your security and data compliance
Yes.
approach. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, Suzanne, if you go to the next slide, I want to give a sort of an overview, and then we'll ask a few more questions. But just generally, for our discussions in relationship with Concord, we worked on a use case together, and related to a lot of these data privacy topics, their HR documents, and the complexity of it was there was different types of forms, different variations of each form, and very specific privacy concerns related to HIPAA topics, medical form requests, sensitive data such as we all see on these types of documents, Social Security, driver's license, etc. But the real challenge as we worked on together was, how do we process this large volume of documentation? How do we do it with sensitive data and PII, personal identifiable information being contained, and still meet the processing times that you needed, right? The data privacy demands from the customer, and having the accuracy of the field. So that's kind of just a summary of what we focused on together, and the results, as we can see here on the slide, were very good. But let me just ask you a few questions about this, unless there's anything else you want to share about this particular use case before I go into questions. Do you have anything else you wanted to share?
I'll just say, I believe it was more than 80,000 documents. So
okay.
I think you're sure. It was a good bit more actually in the long run.
Yeah, that's just being conservative. I appreciate that. Yeah, so there was a lot of documents to process in a very short amount of time to meet the customer's demands. But I guess initially when we were discussing this, why did you choose, or what were the parameters for collective intelligence, and what even with the PII, or personal identifiable information, for these HR documents, what was your decision point and made you feel comfortable with this?
Number one, we were very comfortable with collective intelligence because of, as far as the successful output rate, the accuracy, right? Our most important thing is accuracy, especially when you're talking safety or compliance. We need to have every document, the information we're getting out is accurate. In addition, the platform have great exception handling, right? CTO, the first thing you're always going to ask about a solution, people are always promising you these great things, and we can do this for you, and this will be fantastic. Just give us the money and we'll give you this great solution. What ScaleHub had is a way already built into their system to handle exceptions, very organized, and also to build capability into that to also then even that 99% accurate, the 99% accuracy, the 1% was cleaned up all by that exception handling very cleanly, and our staff was able to do that and interact with their platform. In addition, when we talked to Engage ScaleHub, essentially we were shown all the ways in which our data was kept secure. which is of utmost importance to us. Basically, that we put something into their platform, the crowd is not seeing the entire document. They're not seeing the entire field even. So if it's something with PII, it's broken up to a point where it cannot be used to identify what information is on that document. So that, and in addition, with their collective intelligence model, they were able to build the processes for us in very, very fast time. We engaged them after a good bit of discussion. I think we talked more than it took them to develop the models. I think it was about maybe it was a good bit of document types and different formats, and for them to be able to process those into a tool that we could use in the time that they did was really the deciding factor. No one else could do it like that for us in that time that we needed and get us onboarded. And also the communication. We talk with Scale Hub pretty much every week. I know they all got tired of seeing my face and hearing us, hit up on chats, but it was very helpful to be able to have somebody to talk to walk us through what's going to happen. And then also, if they needed some feedback from us, we had open lines of communication through various members of our team, not just IT, but also our operations staff as well.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great to hear. And we did not get tired of hearing from you, by the way. It was great discussions and great relationship. So, you touched on it, but what assured you of the data privacy, just, and the security were being kept, and your business is so connected to government and data security and personal PII information. And it felt like to me that you felt very confident in that. What was the moment, or sort of the point of assurance that made you say, yes, this can work for us?
Well, so first, from the business side, anytime I enter an agreement with a vendor, I want to know how hard it is to do business, right? Very easy to get agreement set up, but also the business associate agreement that helps us with HIPAA as far as if any issues. Scale Hub was great with that. I had everything ready to go for us and wrapped up into the statement of work and agreement. But then on the technology side, the main thing was that we could put documents in and no one gets to see the entire document. No one gets to see any full piece of identifiable information. So with that, we're able to get, again, the high accuracy with the document, but then we're the only ones to see the document. We're the only ones to get the information back. So that was incredibly important to us, was that we could have a solution where we can say confidently, and we know because we saw the process go through, they demonstrated it with us. Then we had tests with a bunch of test documents that kind of identified what we would send, the data payload we would send over to them of files. And we were able to see the process work and see how our documents were kept secure. We got communication every step of the way. And then we also have, again, a secure portal for us to be able to process issues that may come up from those documents after they're done processing for that slim 1%, which is still very important, even though it's 1%, because we have to be 100% accurate when it comes to safety and compliance.
Excellent. Yeah. And I appreciate all that, and it's a really good summary. And I think it just highlights a lot of the points that we've talked about today. And you've already touched on, the deployment time and the turnaround times. So of course, downstream, your customers are asking you and waiting for that data and want to make sure it's secure. Did you have any, discussions with downstream customer about the data security? Was that ever a topic, or is it more contractually, hey, Concord is in charge of that, and there's a contractual agreement there? So, is there any sort of thoughts on that we can share?
It's contractual, but we're also very hard on our customers as far as how they get data to us in and out. So we can't have a vendor that we use that doesn't meet that standard. So in a lot of ways, some of them, want to send us files in ways that we don't it's not encrypted or things like that. That's not the way we operate. We want to make sure that everything's secure from end to end. So they would expect that to be the case with what vendors we use when we send the data to process and things that we use. So we take it very seriously as far as how secure everything is. So when we talk about that and what our customers expect, we're constantly setting those standards, right? As far as raising that, and we have to meet those standards for a lot of contracts. More and more in this new world, right? You're getting more and more security audits for us as a vendor, right?
Yeah.
We get requests for information from things about architecture to just a survey about our security measures, right? So that's a lot of standards to meet. So it's better to stay ready than to get ready, and that's our take on it. Scale Hub fits that ethos for us. So that's again why it was a very easy relationship for us.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing today, Luembe. These are great examples, great things to think about for everybody. We appreciate obviously you as a business partner and all of the discussions and work we've done together. Thank you for your time and for joining us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Susanna, we're going to move over to you again and have a few wrap up and some question and answer on some general topics, and we'll leave Luembe up on the screen in case there's any questions that relate to him. Thank you.
So just a reminder to everybody, there's we are live, so you can actually ask questions, and we don't have much time left, but any questions that cannot get answered, we will come back to you, of course, afterwards. You get a recording afterwards as well, and you also get our contact details, which you can see here now. If you want to dive deeper. But let's have a look at some of the questions. And there seem to be more coming in around the how to. And I start with a very simple one, Peter. Very simple.
Okay.
Has you ever had a customer experiences data privacy issues in the organization because of using your crowdsourcing solution?
No.
No.
That is simple. Yeah.
Simple answer, yeah. No, I think we wouldn't be here if that was the case. So I think
the one comment just broke. What I would say to that question is no. And then secondly, because of in the U.S. market or in the Americas, as a GDPR based company with a lot of European connections, that whole standard is seen even in the U.S. market as a gold standard. So just saying that and having sort of the ability to process documents that are related to the government, census data, healthcare records, all of that, we have the credentials to talk about that.
Nothing to add.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to take your statements there, but I think it's pretty clear.
Now, I think the next question is kind of somewhat related. It says, you mentioned a variety of approaches to ensure data privacy. Can all of them be used or combined for extra strong security? So I guess it means, the snippeting and the pseudonymization, my favorite word, anonymization and different crowds. And the answer is, yeah, sure. And the hybrid approach of the crowd. So we always use the best combination, and of course anything the AI provides us in addition. We combine that in the best possible way for each use case. But that doesn't mean it takes a lot of time to actually get started. So the way we approach things is these are for us standard approaches that we can combine, and of course make sure that the ones which are the most relevant will be combined, and is always a combination.
Yeah, and I think it falls into sort of the heart of our value prop and our IP is the ability to create those hybrid approaches that then ensures the data security and the compliance. So absolutely, we take all of those steps and different approaches as needed to ensure it, and it's contractual, right?
Yeah, it's contractual. Now there's a few questions coming in regarding AI, and I take one from Valerie from LinkedIn. Has the AI a means to retrieve or extract information from documents and or data, master data, metadata, or does it only focus on the visible part? I guess what he means, a similar question as well, will you use any of your data to train the AI? So I guess the question relates to, does the AI in the cloud that we may use have data from real data to train, and what happens to it?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, the AI models that we use are segregated per customer, and that's contractual in our terms of service. So it's your data, it's your information, and we build the models. But then we leverage our own AI that is segregated and fenced for that customer to then improve upon the models as time goes. And that's part of the out of the box managed service. I'm not sure if that addresses the full question, Susanna, or maybe Luembe, do you guys have other thoughts on that?
No, I think that's a good point. That was in our contract, and so that was something I did not let to mention earlier, but definitely was another part of feeling comfortable going on with Scale Hub.
Okay.
Then I guess another question, and I look at the time, maybe one or two more short question. I think we addressed that, but it came up a few times now. Can it happen that data is not properly anonymized or taken out of context? Was the other, and I think I tried to explain it earlier. So the risk is there, but we would not rely on one technique. I guess that relates back to the first question. So we have a multi-stage approach, especially when there is a risk that potentially the snippet may be not right, or we not anonymize the right data. So that's also where the human comes into it. A human in the loop will come also in a protected environment to look at risky cases. I guess it's the easiest, the way I can explain it the best. So I think that would be probably a good one to refer the persons asking those kind of questions to our YouTube channel, because we have a few explainer videos there which are very short, like a minute and a half. I think probably address some of those questions and how now it's being done in order to de-risk things, and also of course reach out to us and we can explain to you a little bit more in more time some of the approaches we take for this not to happen.
Yeah, I think the main thing there, just to add in, is that in the requirements gathering, if there's any understanding of a risky area, then it's just not, we partition that. When we're creating the snippets are definable, and we know for a fact that they are going to be snippeted and sent as decontextualized data, right? But if there's an area where something cannot be anonymized or not be used properly, then that will be done in the requirements gathering, and we will use a different approach for that particular data.
That's right.
Okay.
And I think we leave it at that. Some of the questions go so deep now that I don't think the time will suffice, so we will answer them offline. And again, the offer is also there to come to us directly at any time, and we love to take the discussions deeper and show you a little bit more how it may be applicable to your particular business as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, and everybody have a great day. Thank you, Luembe. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to questions and to additional topics.